Come on.
Hello.
Hey, Glenn. It's Glenn.
Hey, Glenn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, thank you.
Fantastic, my friend. Thanks for taking the time to call in today.
Sure, man. Sure, good stuff.
Glenn Hughes with Deep Purple, Black Country Communion, and many more.
Yeah.
How has your day been going, buddy?
Oh, I've been very busy doing PR all morning, so good to hear your voice.
You and the band, Deep Purple, wrote Burn in Clearwell Castle, which was built in the 1700s. That had to be awesome.
It was. We were in the dungeon creating that album, writing songs, jamming away, coming up with new ideas, forming a new friendship with these guys. And it was a wonderful hot summer. It was 50 years ago, Ethan, this week, that we were writing those songs in that castle.
That is amazing that it survived this long. It's got to feel pretty good to have 5 decades of this album being out.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a long time ago for people that are younger, but it's a moment in time that everything has a purpose, and I believe the Burn album was a majestic new album from a band that had made some changes.
So were these guys that you were just meeting now in the band, or did you know any of them beforehand?
Well, they had been coming to see me play in my band Trapeze across America and in England. They kept showing up to see me. I had no idea that they were going to eventually ask me to join, so I just thought they were massive fans of my band, so yeah.
How were the acoustics in that dungeon in Clearwell Castle when you and Dave were working on vocal harmonies and stuff?
It was pretty immaculate. I mean, we were forging a new identity, David and I. Again, the band came together very strong in the summer of 73. Again, new friendships were being born, and David and I were carving our way into the history books with Deep Purple.
A lot of people talk about, when Zeppelin were writing Zeppelin 4, I think they did something similar in a castle. Do you think that Clearwell Castle's ambiance had any effect on the writing of Burn?
I think so, because, we were making a new album with a little slight change of direction. The ambiance and if you're working in a castle that's so ancient and everybody around is very cool, and, legend has it the place is very haunted, but it was a remarkable place to create new music.
You've told the story before, and you have to share it with everybody, that Richie Blackmore would play some pranks on people, especially you, because of the castle being haunted.
Yeah, Richie and I came to Castle first before anyone else. And John Lord warned me that Richie was going to do something. So the first night I was fast asleep, 3 o'clock in the morning, and ooh, Blackmore had rigged a speaker under my bed. And he was in his bedroom with a microphone making these ghoulish noises. Well, if you're fast asleep, right, and you don't know and you're in this castle, you wake up in the dark and, oh my, what's going on? Then I of course I heard him laughing down the hallway. So yeah, it was an interesting breakfast the next day.
Were you ever able to get back at him for that one? Did you prank him at all?
I believe so. Well, why not? Yeah.
Yeah. I was noticing when I was looking on the internet about the castle itself, I don't think it's as haunted anymore, because I think the dungeon is now a dance club. The whole thing's a wedding venue.
That's correct. It is. It was becoming, when I was there in 73, it was fast. It was going to change. It started to be the next year or so. It just changed. Yeah. I'd like to go back anyways. I'll be back there in October, close to where the castle is. I'm probably going to go back and say hello.
Oh, I definitely would. I mean, you guys did something amazing there. There's so much history. I'd have to stop in myself if that was you.
Yeah. Yeah.
With Mark III and Mark IV of Deep Purple, you were brought in originally to replace Roger Glover on bass, and then there was talk of you also being lead singer, and then Paul Rodgers was talked to, and it finally settled on you and David being co-lead singers. How did that play out with you and David? It worked out really well, obviously.
It was great. I mean, they told me when I was going to join that my friend Paul Rodgers they were going to ask him to join. But Paul had already started Bad Company, so therefore the band had to find someone else. And it took us about 9 or 10 weeks until we found a young David Coverdale in the north of England.
That's got to be hard. I play a guitar and sing a little myself, and it's hard as hell to play bass and sing, I think, at the same time, because the bass has got to be so locked in with the drums on tempo.
Yes.
Did that take you a long time to get both of those down really well?
For me, I've been playing bass and singing for quite some time, and singing is important. Like, my mentor was McCarthy, so the way he wrote songs and able to play them with bass was very important for me. So I took it from him. So for me to sing with David was natural. You know, he had the lower voice, I had the higher register. So when we were at the microphone together, we had the same vibrato. We spoke the same language, and we loved the same kind of music.
That's awesome. I've heard a story that at one point, Eddie Van Halen wanted you to replace David Lee Roth in Van Halen. Is that true?
Well, look, I was at Eddie's house in the early 90s, and he'd spoken about when David left the band, they were looking for someone to replace him, and they were thinking about me, and then, you know, they went with Sammy. So they had probably had their eyes on a couple of people, but it was nice to know. I mean, I've known Eddie since 1978, since the first album. I was at one of their shows when they were opening for Sabbath. So Eddie's manager, Noel Monk, was my tour manager in Trapeze back in the early 70s.
You know, it's crazy. I've interviewed a number of musicians, and back in the 70s and 80s, it was really kind of a small world where all the managers and bands at some point had friendships all over the place. Yes,
very small world.
You, speaking of amazing guitarists, are out on the road with Yngwie Malmsteen right now. He is one of those musicians that most people would probably be intimidated by. Have you ever sat down with him and just jammed in the room? And
Yeah. I've known Yngwie since '83. He opened for one of my bands in the '83 in LA, and Yngwie jammed with me on one of my songs in London 12 years ago. And Yngwie and I have been speaking about doing something like this for quite some time, and here we are about to start.
Yeah, and you are going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of Burn live in concert. Are you still launching the shows with Burn, because it was a huge concert opener for you in the day?
No, I'm going to close with Burn because it's a great opener, but for me it's a better closing track. I think people will wait for that one, so let's see what happens. I think it's been going. We've just done a selection of shows in Europe since May. We've done about 23 shows, and it's been going wonderful.
Well, we can't wait to see you here at the Capitol Theater September 23rd. Glenn Hughes, thank you for taking the time.